from the outside, when I was in India and I was looking at America and Trump, I think it was a difficult time for me to consider coming to the US. All right, like because from the outside it looked like if you go to that country, you'll be persecuted. Just to clarify, I'm a big supporter of Trump.
Okay.
Right? I'm trying to start a PAC, political action committee, which I even have the domains for why Muslims vote Trump.org.
Okay, well, let's get into that because I assumed that was ironic.
I understand, but it's like the Mexicans, right? I think Ronald Reagan once said that Mexicans are 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 actually Republicans, but they don't know it.
I think Islam hates us.
They have done nothing except wreak havoc and terror for our faith and our religion.
Professed values of the Western countries, democracy and constitutional and human rights, at least they should speak about this.
And it's like, I feel like religion just is making it worse. They say they believe in God, but I think they're just anxious.
Before we talk about politics, let's look at the fundamental things.
That when we stand up to those who oppress our communities, that Allah accepts from us that as a form of jihad.
And it requires people with guts to follow God in an era that everyone does whatever is right in their eyes.
Will you distance yourself from those who think differently? Or will you join us at the table and talk about what is really important? This is the Al-Ma'idah Initiative, conversation without compromise.
Welcome to the Al-Ma'idah Initiative podcast. We are here again with my friend Musa, and today we're going to be recording 2 episodes that will be released back to back. So one this week, one next week, and we are going to be talking about the presidential candidates this year, both the personalities and the issues. So this week we're going to be talking about Donald Trump, and then next week we're going to be talking about Kamala Harris. So let's start with personality, I think.
Okay.
Right. So what do you think? What's been your reaction to Donald Trump's presidency? Were you living in America through Trump's presidency?
No.
Okay. So you've been here since Donald Trump was president.
Actually, yeah. Since I think I was there. I came in 2019, so like a year and a half maybe, and then there's COVID and all of that.
Okay. Yeah. So you got back basically a year and a half of Trump's presidency.
Yes.
And then you had Biden's presidency.
Correct.
So what are your but you missed the 2016 election cycle.
Yes.
Oh, good for you.
I mean, we watched it on TV,
Right.
But I wasn't here. Yes.
So what do you, as a Muslim,
Yes.
I caught myself immediately this time. What are your thoughts on Donald Trump? What are your thoughts on this election cycle with him?
Okay, so since you brought it up, like from the outside, when I was in India and I was looking at America and Trump, I think it was a difficult time for me to consider coming to the US. All right, like because from the outside it looked like if you go to that country, you'll be persecuted. Right, so that the rhetoric does create fear among people inside the community and outside the country as well. So I had to think a lot of times before coming to the United States. So that's how it was from the outside. When I came to the inside, it was just Twitter every day, I guess. The next thing, and I think from an economic standpoint, I think he did quite well, right? Because of the tax breaks and the business-friendly policies and just knowing how business works. I think he was doing a good job from an economic standpoint, and I think we are going to policy, but from a behavioral standpoint, the rhetoric did not help the average Muslim have a good opinion about him.
Right, and there's even things that I've noticed. I deal with a lot of people from Muslim countries who are asylum seekers. And a lot of them are terrified of Trump going back to the White House because they're concerned they're going to get immediately deported if that happens.
Yes.
Which doesn't actually reflect reality.
Yes.
But people are scared of it?
I would. I have a different opinion.
Okay.
So, like at least from an Indian standpoint, the number of consulate officials that were there, they were reduced in the time of Trump presidency. So the cases went slower. So he was trying to slow down immigration, and for good reason that he has his own reasons. From like everybody has positive intent, right? It really depends which side of the aisle you're on. So his perspective was that when people from outside, when the best people from outside come to this country, which has Americans, right? Decent number of Americans, 300 million Americans. When people from outside comes, it brings a lot of competition here. And so the average American is at a disadvantage, right? So it was in his best interest, or in the best interest of Americans, to slow down immigration. And he did a bunch of things which increase scrutiny of immigration paperwork, scrutiny of officials. Like I think officials were, in a way encouraged to err on the side of caution than the other. So it did have a real effect on immigration.
Right. And it does have an effect on asylum too. So you had the whole wait in Mexico policy, which absolutely affected people.
Yes.
But I think what people need to understand is that the president is not a dictator.
Correct.
Donald Trump doesn't, like, having worked with people trying to move here in asylum paperwork, the actual density of USCIS is much bigger than one man.
Yes.
So the president can enforce laws that exist. He can, expedite existing laws and processes and stuff like that. He can control the border.
Or he could do an executive action.
Yeah, but even then, right, those executive actions have to face the scrutiny of the court system too. So it would be very difficult for him to say, all right, we're deporting all the Afghans, for example.
Yeah.
That would get struck down in court.
Totally. Yeah.
Especially if somebody's in a legitimate process already.
Yes.
So probably if you're an asylum seeker watching this and you're in the US and you haven't filed your paperwork yet, you definitely want to have that filed before the presidency changes, because that could be a problem for you. But if you're in the process, you're probably pretty safe.
Yes. I mean, there are ways to work around it. Like the judiciary is also people. So if you get conservative judges there, you can pull off a Roe v. Wade repeal fairly easily. Like, so it's nuanced. It's nuanced. I think how I would see it is, it helps solidify his base, right? So even if it doesn't happen on the ground, which I agree with, right? Like, it's not like if there are 100,000 people who are asylum seekers, Trump comes and says it's 20,000, right? That doesn't happen. It's not a very significant difference, but it definitely can be reduced to maybe 80,000, right? With just the rhetoric and support from up there to those people in the immigration system to be encouraged to scrutinize further, right? On the other hand, if you have a Democratic candidate who's like, oh, we should all immigrate everybody in the world and bring everyone here, and that's a viewpoint that they have, right? Like it should be a free country. We benefit from more immigrants, and that's a viewpoint that can, it influences. The fringe will stay where they are, but the sheep will follow.
So from an immigration perspective, the Donald Trump slowed the process down. The Democrats let more people in.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, the endless Indian visa line gets longer and longer and longer, right?
Yes, and that's a difficult reality for Indians, and specifically, I'm an Indian, and it kind of comes to a form of slavery. Like visa slavery is what Indians refer to it in whatever shape or form, like where you are a slave of your company, regardless of how well you work, like your existence in the country is an enslaved one to this particular company unless you find another company. Like you
Right.
can't take a break from work.
Right.
You have to solidify your position within the same company, because getting a position in another company is not easy, even in the tech world.
Right. Right. So it means if you get laid off,
Yes.
you're in significant danger of having to like leave your entire existence.
Your existence, your family's existence, your kids might stay back, which is not going to happen. It's very complex. You could even separate from your kids, because if kids might have a US citizenship and they may not have Indian paperwork. Like my daughter is a US citizen. She was born here. But if she goes to India, she can stay there for a max of 6 months, unless she has an OCI and all of those kind of things. But getting an OCI when you're there is kind of difficult and all of that. So you could even separate from your own kids by virtue of being here, and 10 years into your life here, you still don't have like equality in terms of opportunities as a human being, just because you got here a little late and was born in a country which has many people who are interested to come here. So it's a weird system. There is positive intent on both sides. You don't want to make this country an Indian country.
Right. Right.
It was already an Indian country before the Europeans came here.
Right. Right.
So you want to kind of keep your European prevalence here. So I kind of get it.
So this is actually interesting, because I think the average right-wing American probably thinks the average. I'm actually not sure that's true, but there is a caricature out there that immigrants want unlimited immigration.
Yes, immigrants, people who are, nobody wants to leave their country, right? Let's put it like that. Like I have no desire to leave my town, my hometown, my family, my grandmother, right? I have no interest in leaving that if equitable economic conditions prevail all over the world, right? But that's not true, right? Like you can make more money in America, you have more opportunities in America, and there is more corruption in my country, right? There is safety concerns in my country, and there are safety concerns in other countries, which are partly caused by this country, right? So when you get into that situation, you want to leave your country to whichever country is better, right? Now, when you look at that scale, and a better life usually coincides with a good economical country, right? A good life where I make money and my kids are taken care of and all of that. So United States is definitely one of those places that is a place where you can find a good life, right? It's a land of opportunity. And so in the pursuit of happiness, you find those lands of opportunities that you can find. And it's just natural that like people prefer to go wherever and that's why, at least from my town or my state of Kerala in India, many people immigrate to Dubai. We kind of consider Dubai as our capital, even though we are
Right.
connected. But it's just that everybody within the age group of age, where age equal to 20 and age greater than or equal to 20 and age less than or equal to 60, your location should be the Middle East, right? That's the law of the land.
Well, it's actually the Keralite culture is fascinating, because, and we're going way off topic here, but whatever. Because it relates to the U.S. election as well. Because from my understanding, Kerala has high taxes and sort of a much more sort of socialized society. Or at least they did at one point. So the main industry there is tourism or hospitality. And so something in Kerala's history has resulted in most of the sort of like driven businessman entrepreneurial Keralites leaving Kerala, going to the UAE or Saudi Arabia or the US, and kind of becoming rich and successful there, and sort of visiting their parents in Kerala, and that's where most of the money comes from.
Yes. So I don't know about the high taxes thing. It's probably an Indian thing because taxes in India is like 30% or even more. Uh, and most people don't pay taxes. Uh, so the honest salaried worker who gets honest pay usually gets charged taxes, and the rich multimillionaire usually pays nothing, right? Because it's all under the table. That said, it's a corrupt place. All of India is corrupt. Kerala is much better, in my opinion. But that said, it's still in India, right? So the corruption is general knowledge, right? It's just the way it is, right? So when they go to Dubai, so even if you are an educated person, you might just probably start off at $500 a month, right? You would start off at $100 a month, right? You maybe make it to $500 a month if you're in the average job. So not everybody can start a job, start a business, right? Starting a business is difficult. So let's talk about the average Keralite, right? The average Keralite may make like $300, $400 a month, right? And if you get into a government job where you don't do anything, where you don't do much, but still get paid and have the possibility of pension, you kind of start your side businesses along with it and maybe make like $1,000 a month, right? I don't know the exact numbers, but something like that. Compare and contrast that with, why don't you just take a $200 ticket, go to Dubai on a 3-month visa, go there, figure out something, and somebody might sponsor you for a visa, and then now you start at $500, right? Even working at a grocery,
Right.
right? Like you have no skill, like no marketable skills, and then from there you can work your way up, right? And if you are honest and if you work hard, there is a chance to make it big. And many people, like my dad, he was doing BCom. Due to family circumstances, he could not complete his degree, the 3-year degree that he had. Family circumstances. My dad's father, Musa, the actual Musa, passed away like when he was 14 or like very young, and now the kids have the responsibility of funding the family. So his elder brother was already there, got him from school, took him out of school before he could complete his degree, and then went to Dubai to make money. Like nobody wants to stop studying, right? But circumstances make that situation happen. And then he goes and does some very menial job like a peon or whatever or something. I don't know exactly. But he worked hard, right? He worked hard. He knew how to talk through things. He was the editor of the college magazine. So he was good. He knew how to type, so he was resourceful. And through that, he got into a fairly good managerial position in a financial institution, and, he made it there. And now he has a house and all of that stuff. Now think of that. How would you get there with a $500 per month salary?
Right. It's not going to happen. So pivoting back to the US, right?
So that's immigration 101. People leave their country.
They leave their countries, right? And that is, and that, what you're describing there, right, is people leaving the country for the sake of an opportunity.
Yes.
Somewhere. A lot of people coming in now, like, had to flee something as well, right? There's two sides of that. And America has had massive amounts of people coming in.
Yes.
During the Biden administration.
Yes.
Some of them are my friends.
Yes.
I'm not going to say everything that comes from that is a bad thing. I will say immigration is out of control right now.
Yes.
I was meeting with a dude from Mauritania like 2 months ago.
Okay.
And he's this 22-year-old Mauritanian kid. I'm glad he's here. But he describes his border journey as he walks over the southern border, sees a border patrol officer, and he's like, "Are you going to arrest me?" It's like, "Nope, keep going." Right, that's what's happening on the southern border right now.
Yeah.
That's less security that I have to go through when I'm traveling from like Seattle to Idaho, right?
Yeah, it's in their best interest, right? Democrats, I mean, I don't know. I think this part was supposed to be about Trump, but making the case about Trump.
Yeah. Well, we can see where Trump is coming from here too, right?
Yeah. So basically, there are multiple states in the United States where you can vote without an ID, right? Who do you think these people who cross the border will vote for, right? When a particular side of the government is totally loose about this. So they're enabling this behavior. And anybody who's trying to exploit undocumented workers, you can guess which side that would be.
Sure, sure.
So like it's in the best interest of the Biden administration to let them in, because the voting is the game of numbers.
Sure, and if the state population increases enough, then the electoral college changes as well, right?
Right. It's a delegate thing, right? You get the state or you don't get the state. So you push in, like you change legislation, you change electoral boundaries in a way that enables you to use this undocumented population to vote for you. And yes, like people, oh, is this person talking about electoral fraud? But like in a country that's like as big and sophisticated as United States, I was shocked to know that you can vote without an ID. Like without a photo ID, you can go to a polling booth and decide, like actually contribute to the results of an election with just being there as a human being. Like it's ridiculous. I don't know, like I don't know how people, and obviously, like you'll have 10 publications like New York Times and all the democratic left leaning media will keep telling electoral fraud is nothing. And I even read a paper that one of my Muslim friends forwarded to me. It was like I don't know, 300-page document. I don't know, auto generated with ChatGPT or something, I don't know, probably. But some random professor from some random college publish a 300-page document that says that electoral fraud is not real, right? And it's just like small talk, right? It's like, yeah, there's hearsay, people say, and this and that, but that usually doesn't happen. What is the value of it and all of that? Like, like philosophical talk. And I'm like, this is a paper somebody publishes out of a university. I mean, I can do a better job than this. Like ChatGPT could probably write a better, like 2-page article than this about electoral fraud if you're talking about numbers. So it is what it is, right? I mean, I think I don't know, right? I'm a nobody. Like I've been in this country for 5 years. I've never voted here. Sadly, I've not ever voted in India either, right? Because I don't have a voter ID. Because it's just like,
so in India, you have to have ID to vote, but not here.
Of course, and it's a process and it's complicated. They verify your address. If you're in a different city and you have a permanent residence somewhere else, you're in a rental place. It's just too complicated for me to go through that process. I think they made it a little easier. Still, like it's probably easier to get a passport than get a voter ID.
That's actually fascinating, because India is way bigger than America is.
Yes.
India is what, 1 billion people?
More than that, 1.4 or so, and 800 or 900 million eligible voters.
And that makes it the largest democracy in the world.
100%, like
3-4x. And they're requiring voter ID, but that's not required in the US.
Yes, and an impoverished nation. I mean, like we have like, what is it, like $3 trillion GDP? That's like a fraction of what US is.
So that is interesting. So it seems to make the arguments here kind of nonsense. Like people wanting voter ID here seems to make perfect sense.
Yes. And the other side of the argument is like, hey, what if you are a criminal or you have some criminal record and you can't get a voter ID? Or the other argument that I've heard is, what if you're 18 years old and you don't have an ID? I'm like, okay, that's like a small fringe here and there, but what about the larger population and the concern that there are 10 million people crossing your border and they don't have IDs and they could come and influence your election? Like for a swing state like Florida, like which has probably 5% of the delegate percentage in the overall scheme of things. Like it just takes a swing of like, a few 100,000 votes. I don't know, right? Like I mean, Florida is hard to flip, but these states like Ohio and all of this, like why does Ohio? I mean, I don't understand. Like Ohio is kind of Midwestern state. What would you?
Yeah, Midwest,
right? Like I don't understand how Ohio had an 8% swing towards the Biden administration when it's a Midwestern state. I mean, like, why would Americans vote for Democrat? I mean, like the real Americans. Like I have a joke from a friend. He said that, hey, he was in Seattle. He lived in Seattle for all his life, and then at some point he went to some Midwestern country, and then he was, I think, Mount Rushmore or something, and some people noticed them, Muslim friend, and they were like, oh, where are you from? Oh, we are from Seattle. They're like, oh, welcome to America.
Huh? Yeah, Seattle's right next to America. So I saw something interesting
Yes.
this week that a Muslim friend was posting in shock and disbelief that the first town with an all-Muslim city council is Hamtramck, Michigan. And the Muslim mayor of Hamtramck, Michigan just endorsed Donald Trump.
Oh, 100%. I'm a big support. I mean, just to clarify, I'm a big supporter of Trump.
Okay.
Right? I even like I'm trying to start a PAC, political action committee, which I even have the domains for why Muslims vote Trump.org.
Okay, well, let's get into that because I assumed that was ironic.
I understand, but it's like the Mexicans, right? I think Ronald Reagan once said that Mexicans are 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 actually Republicans, but they don't know it. Right? What that means is like Mexicans believe in values grounded in religion. Mexicans are hardworking people. They don't want handouts. And Mexicans like just want to live like they want. I mean, there might be some who may not, but good majority of the Mexicans usually are like they just want to live a good life. They are rooted in family values and all of those kind of things, and that's more like Republican than Democrats, right? Democrats are like, we don't need kids, we don't need family, we don't need values. Like, you do your LGBTQ thing, right? And like, don't reproduce, and like, we don't need you can do whatever, change your internal reproductive organs and things like that, whatever. So I think Muslims are similar. Like, Muslims have values, right?
Right.
Democrats don't. Muslims are very anti-LGBTQ, like from like any person you talk to, like, it's very, and Muslims care about kids. Democrats don't, right? It's like very clear, right? Like when the president of the United States turns the White House like rainbow, like, we are appalled, right? Like, I mean, why is this guy pushing this ideology on us? Why does he want this he, she, we, thee, thou pronoun thingy to be taught to kindergarten kids, right? Like, Muslims are pulling their kids out of schools that they fund out of their tax money. Like, if you had given, like, I mean, if you can, I mean, as a government, you can do what you want, right? Because you have a monopoly on power for the next 5 years, right? More 4 years in this country. But what I'm trying to say is, hey, if you want to push your ideology, why don't you just give people an option, right? Like, hey, we'll give you a tax break if you're not interested in LGBTQ, right? And if you're really for LGBTQ, we can use that tax fund for this, right? And let's find out how many people would actually pay money for it, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm a Muslim father, and I'm like, oh, why not? Like, just refund me 5% because I'm not interested in the LGBTQ stuff, right? Give it to me, and then I'll tell you where to put that 5%, right? Like, make it an actual democratic process, right? And not, and there is a way to do that. I mean, that's why you have House Democrats and you have senators, right? But it's all rigged a little bit, right? Like, they have their own lobby groups, and like 80% of their money actually comes from 20% of their donors who have their own private school interests. Uh, so it's very complicated.
So I think one thing that kind of happened because you're right, the sort of general Republican value system, the family value system, and the average Muslim family value system has a lot of overlap.
Correct.
Not entirely, but there's a lot of overlap.
100%.
Right. And from my understanding, most Muslims in the US voted Republican before 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And then after 9/11, the Republican Party kind of became the party of interventionism in the Middle East and what are these people doing here kind of thing. And the Democrats kind of seized that opportunity to befriend the oppressed minority, which is something that they, that they think of themselves as caring about.
Yeah.
So it kind of creates this strong but kind of very unnatural alliance in some ways that's been fascinating to watch. And it seems to me that the further we get away from that point in time, the more that alliance kind of unravels, and the less sort of stupid Republicans get about interventionism in Islam, and the more Democrats keep, expressing their own political values and social values, the less it seems to me that Muslims are going to vote left.
Yeah, the problem that's happening in the Muslim community is that they're confused what to do, right? So on one side you have Democrats who don't care about Muslims in Gaza, right? So they're completely against Democrats, right? They're like, I will do, like, if somebody comes and it's like, in no in my, like, in my life I'm not going to, like, vote Democrat because they killed my brothers in Gaza, right? And they played the ceasefire game for like almost a year, and they still play the ceasefire game, right? They're like, oh, this Monday we're going to have a ceasefire, and then 30 Mondays later, nobody remembers what Monday that was. And in Ramadan we'll have a ceasefire, and we'll send a US warship to stop people from attacking Israel. So there's a very, I mean, like the time of now, right? The current time, it's very clear that no Muslim likes Democrats.
Sure.
Right? Now, the problem is they don't like Republicans either, because Republicans, or rather Trump either, because Trump is the Muslim ban guy.
Sure. And also pro-Israel.
I mean, in America, you can't be a politician without being pro-Israel, right? So
Right.
the reality of the political landscape.
So people are picking which pro-Israel candidate they're going to vote for.
No, that's what they're doing. They're like, we won't participate. Or there's another fringe that is like, let's vote for the Green Party because Jill Stein says something, right? And that's more ridiculous, because that's as good as saying I'm an NPC.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and at some point I'm disappointed by the Muslims in America choosing to be an NPC and being complicit in this genocide. What I mean by that is, you, as a country, I think 192 countries, or however there are, 191 countries have agreed that we need a ceasefire. There is one country in this, or rather two, that say that we won't stop the war. And the bodyguard that's enabling this behavior is the United States. And if you are being asked by the system, the democratic system, to choose who you want to align with as the country in control, if you choose to not participate, are you not complicit in enabling this genocide? And I understand both sides are pro-Israel, right? But there is one hypocritical side which tells you, hey, we are with you. And on the other side, they send all the weapons, billions of dollars, right? On the other side, there's this guy who's Trump, and he's like, at least he's anti-war, right? I mean, some like basic stuff, right? He's anti-war. If you look at the number of people killed during his presidency in Palestine, specifically in Palestine or in the Middle East, right? America didn't do stupid stuff, right? Bush is a different story. Right? That's the Republican, whatever, like the system, the what do you call it? Like, what, drain that swamp, right? Sort of thing. Yeah. So that's the swamp, right? There's the Republican swamp and the Democratic swamp, right? There's part of that state and conspiracy theory and deep state and all of that stuff, right? But then, like, who would you align with? Like, if you just talk numbers, right? There's this guy who's Biden, who's like completely okay with. I mean, I don't know how much he knows, right? Because I don't know in what state of mind he is right now, right? So he's just a puppet, right? Somehow he won because of the COVID situation. There was no way he was going to win. Like, if you think about the elections, Bernie was supposed to win.
Right.
Right? Then something happened. The whole Democratic Party got together and said that if Bernie is in power, he's going to be the new Trump from the Democratic side, right? The socialist side, right? And like, we need to get together, pile up all the votes, get all the delegates, and get him out, right? like with a feather. Otherwise, Biden had what, 15% of the vote? Like, he was the nobody. It was just the white guy with white hair who seemed to be like the non-controversial candidate of
Right,
list.
right. And that was the play there, right? Because Trump is controversial. So putting out somebody who is like not really there was kind of perfect for that. Because, well, what's there to be angry at?
He's done nothing anyways in the 47 years, right? He's been in office.
And now,
So,
now we've had 4 years of doing nothing, and now maybe a living person would be good.
yeah, he's been doing things for the lobby. Like, he's been doing things for the green energy lobby. He's been doing things for, he's been doing a lot of things. He's just been, he's taken off the Muslim ban. He's done certain things. I'm not saying he's not done anything. Maybe at least in the early part of his presidency, he kind of got the country back up on, hey, we have a COVID nightmare here right now. We have a pandemic. Let's take it seriously. Let's pick up from where Trump did certain things and let's finish the job, right? In the process, increase inflation, do all of this stuff. But inflation benefits people. It benefits certain people.
Yeah.
Right? And those certain people, he is doing exactly what he was hired for, right? By the people who hired him. It's not like the people of America hired him.
Yeah, and the thing is, with that sort of thing,
Yeah,
well, I think presidents can have an impact on the economy.
100%.
But the fact is that the government lockdowns that happened and the way the world reacted to COVID inevitably was going to have some kind of consequences like this.
Yes.
So it's I don't want to be slow to pin this on one particular man.
He's not, he doesn't have full control. So let's call him the main representative of the Democratic Party, right? Like, if we have to complain about somebody, we are not going to complain about what's her name? The person in the Senate, that lady who
Nancy Pelosi?
Nancy Pelosi, yes. Yes, the person, the heiress to $250 billion, right? $250 million.
I don't know how.
Yeah, so her net worth is like $250 million, right? And she speaks for the immigrants and all of those kind of things. So she 250, at least her, I don't know how much her. So, more or less, at least documented money is very close to $1 billion, right? Her family. So now, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that, yes, these people are the representatives, not that they are fully in control, but they represent special interests.
So,
and they're doing their job.
I think for me, if I look back on how well what my paycheck looked like in 2019 and now, it's the same number. But I felt much richer in 2019 than I do in 2023, 4?
24 now. Yeah. Yeah.
Gosh. So I feel it personally.
Yes, inflation.
Right? Yeah, I feel the inflation. My Robinhood account of $350 of stocks I've bought is great, but like everything else in my life feels more expensive.
Yes.
God provides. I'm fine.
Yes.
But I definitely feel it. Now, there's all sorts of things that affect that, not just the administration. However, what I will say is I think this administration has done a bad job on foreign policy.
Yes.
The thing that has affected my life the most is actually the US withdrawal from Afghanistan. And that sounds like a weird thing for a British guy living in Seattle to say, but I'm kind of helping probably about 48 different Afghans who have moved here since the fall of Kabul.
Yeah.
One way or another. Now, I've gained friends from that, but the US's actions there were catastrophic.
It depends who you ask.
Yeah, it does depend who you ask, but any sort of dictatorship is going to be like that. If you ask somebody living in Iraq about Saddam Hussein, a dictator works really, really, really well for some people, and badly for others. But for my friends who are here, they had to run for their lives. Now, maybe the result in Afghanistan was inevitable, and even if it was, there's a way to pull out in a way that's less completely catastrophic than we did, and give people more time to get out, more time to figure out, okay, who should be leaving, what sort of orderly, we could certainly do it in a more orderly fashion.
Yes. So what I mean by it depends who you ask is you are seeing a very skewed sample of Afghan people.
Sure.
Right? They are the people who were traitors in the eyes of Afghan people because they worked with the US government. That is why they are here.
Yeah, some of them are religious minorities too.
Many of them, okay,
Yeah.
like the vast majority of them were Muslims who worked with the US government as translators or administrators, helping the enemy, right, who was occupying their land for money. Okay?
Sure. But
I know these people.
Yeah, but there's also plenty of like Hazaras, say, right, who are.
I'm talking about numbers, right?
Sure.
Plenty is like a very subjective number.
Yeah, I'm talking about the people I know who are
Okay.
here, right? So again, even if from the perspective of people in Afghanistan, those people were traitors.
Yes.
They betrayed their own people for us.
Yes.
We got to take care of those people.
Totally. So you're
Right?
doing the right thing.
Right.
Yes.
So again,
what I'm trying to say is the withdrawal in Afghanistan was a great thing for Afghans.
it was, and it could have been a win-win, right? Even it could have been a win-win rather than this sort of embarrassing, kerfuffle that was, right?
Yeah, it was embarrassing. It was quick. It was inevitable. I agree. So it really showed America in bad light. So
Yeah.
that's what I say. Like it was definitely a bad thing for Americans because you just lost all respect from everybody. Like we just like as a ally, let's say as an Indian, I'd be like, wow, this is what America does to its allies, right? After this is what America does to a country after invading them, just leave within a week and just leave them there, and like 20 years of $3 trillion that you probably spent there in that country, and now 20 years later you're back to square one. Like Taliban is back and in full power with your military weapons. Like that's so embarrassing,
Right.
and from an American standpoint. But from Afghan standpoint, yes, they lost a lot of people. They lost 20 years of prosperity. They got like tens of countries invading their country on behalf of of the United States. So for them it was bad, but at the end, in the long term, they just got like billions of dollars worth of weapons.
Yeah.
Air. Now they're like a fairly stronger economy right now. Yes, United States is holding their money in the United States banks and not giving it back to them, billions of dollars, because United States is the bully here, right? Like it really depends who you ask, right? So from an Afghan perspective, people are very happy with the US withdrawal. Like they would have, and they took away the traitors, right? So they're totally happy with giving them, and Taliban already had at least forgiven those people who worked with their enemy. So whoever has come here has come for a better life, right? Opportunity, and it's not like things are great in Afghanistan, but it's definitely better than what it was with the United States, because United States you can you just have some Palantir AI looking at drone footage and actually practicing shooting on real people, right? That was the situation. Drone strikes would happen in the middle of nowhere and they would kill children and human beings while they train their military equipment, right? Because it was like a testing ground for them. So yes, now Palantir doesn't have that control, and Palantir is just the AI company that whatever does military stuff at scale.
So I really think that symbolized, again, and that may be the inevitable situation in Afghanistan. there was a whole society there, even if it was small, that was born after the US occupation.
Yes.
Like a lot of my friends grew up, like my friend Jala, grew up as a, sort of liberal educated woman in Kabul after the US invasion. I have other friends who grew up in that same era. And essentially, the world that they were promised was not a realistic world.
Promised by whom?
The US,
Okay.
right? And the US, the sort of secular liberal apparatus here, did not understand Afghanistan. So
Yes.
I read Ashraf Ghani's book, Fixing Failed States, and there's like zero mention of religion and ideology in there at all, which is insane if you're talking about Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So the American withdrawal, while I think we should have withdrawn, we couldn't be in Afghanistan forever. There's no sense of trying to transform it into something that it doesn't want to be. We should have taken care of the people who we created better, is my opinion about that. And we could have withdrawn in a way that says, all right, we respect our opponents and we take care of our people. And I think because we've had weak leadership here,
Yes.
I think that's created all sorts of foreign policy problems.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, in your metric, how you would, if you're trying to think about, okay, well, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden has been weak on Gaza. The Democrats have been
very strong on Gaza, actually.
very strong.
The other side. Like you sent 6 warships, 5 warships.
Sure. So
who support Israel. You're very strong.
Yeah.
Who you support.
So they've been and they speak out of one side of their mouth towards the Palestinian cause, but they wholeheartedly support Israel.
Yes.
How do you think voting for Trump helps that situation? Play the math out a little bit more for me.
So voting for Trump, at least Trump is not a warmonger, right? He doesn't have special interests backing him, specifically Lockheed Martin, Boeing. These weapon manufacturers are not supporting him, so he has no reason to continue wars in there. And I think AIPAC also supports him, maybe a little bit, but AIPAC, I mean AIPAC, America's Israeli Political Action Committee, they're the chief lobby group in the US supporting the Israel cause. So AIPAC knows that they cannot influence a guy like Trump. They cannot control a guy like Trump, right? At some point, Trump might be like, I think you guys are doing something wrong. I won't listen to you. What do you do after that? Like Trump has his base, right? The Trump is not a slave to the GOP or otherwise, right? So he's somebody who can make a decision single-handedly, right? And he has some empathy for life. Like he doesn't want wars. He doesn't want the Ukrainian war. He doesn't like people dying is the general feeling I have. I don't know, but at least that's what he says. And that's what he's done based on his record. He's not engaged in the Yemeni war. He's not engaged in the Syrian war. He's not engaged in wars that will spend American money on American taxpayer money, right? It's coming from my paycheck, right? So like if you look at the annual budget of America, that's like $6 trillion, $7 trillion of the US government. Six. Out of that, I think $900 billion is military spending. So let's say 20% is military spending, a little less than 20%. But so if I, as a person who earns, let's say for every $100,000 that I earn, if I'm paying 25% of that, or after standard deductions and all of that, but let's say I'm paying 20% of that as taxes. $20,000 I fund the government. $25,000 I fund the government. $5,000 of that military spending comes from my paycheck. Okay, and this money is not going to liberate people, right? It's just funding weapons manufacturers, right? Because who like you just need to follow the money trail, right? If you want to know the truth, follow the money. So that money ends up going to these weapons manufacturers or construction companies or rebuilding companies, right? Who are funding politicians. There's a clear conflict of interest here. There's no liberty, justice, all of that stuff is for fluff talk by politicians, like on TV. The meaning is, how can I take your $5,000 for every 100K you make? How can I spend that on weapons to fund the weapons? Like, like you might pay, and it's ridiculous amount, like $900, $1,000 for a gun or something like that, like probably cost like $50 to make. So create huge amount of financial incentive for this company, and just spend it on war. So Trump doesn't see a need to address weapon manufacturers' bottom line because he's not funded by them.
I think that is a large part of the appeal of someone like Trump, in that you kind of know what you're getting. He says what he actually thinks.
Yeah, he's an honest liar.
Yeah. And so when he talks about the Middle East, he says what he actually thinks about the Middle East.
Yeah.
Where he's not trying to satisfy anyone by saying that.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, this is both his greatest flaw and his greatest strength.
Yes. Honesty.
Yeah.
Honesty is he's just brutally honest, and he doesn't care what you think.
Yes. Except in the moment, but I think so what I see with him, though, and this is my concern. I'm not saying this is probably true for most politicians. What I see, though, is he loves people who love him.
Mm-hmm.
So when if you're anti-Trump, he reacts to you. But if you're nice to Trump, he'll almost kind of absorb anything that you're prepared to say. Which, again,
I'm like that.
Sure. It's a human problem in some ways, and sometimes a virtue. It could be a virtue in democracy, right? So if what I'm trying to convince a lot of people of with the whole Israel-Gaza thing right now is that people spend way too much time, or especially talking to evangelical Christians, that they're trying to get them to switch from caring about Israel to caring about the Palestinians.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need to do that. You don't need them to switch. You just need them to also care about the Palestinians.
Yeah, human beings.
So that is, there's an opportunity with someone like Trump that if people who feel excluded from the political process may actually be able to have some influence with someone like that, rather than with a professional politician who's used to saying what people want to hear and then just doing what they were going to do anyway.
Yes. Trump is not diplomatic, which is another word for hypocritical. So he's not a munafiq from an Islamic standpoint. Democrats are clearly munafiq. I mean, they say that we support Palestinians. We support their reason to exist as equal citizens. And on the other side, they're like, oh, Israel, you need $10 more billion. Go get it. Here's the paycheck, right? So they're two-faced completely. This guy at least tells you what he's going to do, even if you don't like what he's doing. Like, you don't like the Abraham Accords, you don't like the Jerusalem embassy move. At least he's doing it out the open, and he says so because he needs Israeli support. That's fine. So I think what we as Muslims need to do is show to Trump that we matter in your success. We are allies to you, and we like you more than the other person. Like, we don't like you completely, right? But at least you seem to be saying what you're saying, doing what you're saying, right? And saying what you're going to do. Like, at least you're predictable. As opposed to Kamala Harris, who gives such a beautiful speech on stage, for the presidential debate. And even I am like, oh my God, did I make a mistake judging this person? This person seems to give me the best idea about how Palestinians can coexist with Israelis. I mean, this is like a beautiful change because they see that in the swing states of Michigan, in Florida, in Ohio, the margin that they have had, at least when Biden was being elected, when there was a clear anti-incumbency against Trump, who was mismanaging the COVID pandemic, they see that the margin that they won by is 2%, 3%, right? And the percentage of Muslims in those states is 5%, 6%. So if the Muslims flip to Republicans, it's a clear loss. And there's clear red states and blue states. Nobody cares about them, right? It's primarily the presidential election is won from these 10 swing states or so, Michigan, Ohio, Florida, all of these. And these have a significant Arab Muslim population who is pro-Gaza, which equals anti-democrat. So their best thing is don't vote for anybody so that you don't matter. Like if I was their political strategist in the Democratic Party, I'd be like, let's figure out a way to say Muslims are anti-Republican and definitely you're not pro-Democrat. So just be an NPC, don't vote, or vote for the Green Party.
Yeah.
Like this is what I would do as a political strategist and really confuse the average Muslim who's watching a debate, including me, saying that Kamala, I am the change and I'll be pro-Palestinian. And then 3 days later, just send money to Israel.
And what you think the best shot Muslims have in this election then is to vote for Trump and talk to Trump.
Yes.
And maybe that will have a positive outcome in Gaza.
100%, 100%. At least he will stop the war, number one, right? Based on the 4 years of his presidency. Like anybody can make war. It's easy. Just drop a bomb anywhere, you can start a war. But very few people can actually make peace, make a deal where both parties are happy. And yes, there are downsides to UAE, Egypt, Bahrain, and I think one other country getting into a good relationship with Israel. Right now the Israelis have free passage into Arab countries, right? And that looks like anti-Palestinian, right? You just watered down the Palestinian cause. But then in the larger scheme of things, like if you think of Treaty of Hudaybiyah, right, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, where he went into a very unequitable, unfair treaty, right, with the Quraysh, where it was like, hey, if somebody from the Quraysh comes, like if somebody from like the Muslims from Medina goes to Makkah, because the Prophet ﷺ had moved to Medina and the Quraysh were in Makkah and they had some tension between each other. The deal kind of had one clause that, hey, if somebody comes from Makkah all the way to Medina seeking asylum, the Muslims were supposed to send them back to their oppressors. But if somebody is caught or brought or something like that, comes from Medina to Makkah, they can keep them. They don't need to be returned. Like completely unfair. Like it's like they were all the way in front of Makkah, few hours from there. It's a long story. But what I'm trying to say is the Treaty of Hudaybiyah should show us some wisdom.
I have some thoughts on this as well, but we're at time. So
Yeah.
if you want to hear my thoughts on the Abraham Accords and all this, you're going to have to tune in next week for the Al Maida Initiative podcast.